But it's really still building up a lot of momentum, as we can see today from today's 7 fantastic presenters. So we'll hear from 7 presenters from across the University of Liverpool, showcasing their diverse podcasting projects. So that's the main issue. Here they are. Here I've got an agenda on my next screen. So these are, we have 7 presenters from across the university, and they're going to be sharing lots of tips and their best practice in what they've been doing, how they've been found in their approach work. And then at the end of the session, we're going to have a panel discussion, and we're hoping to end at 2 p.m. properly. So as you see, it's a packed schedule, and with that, we need to keep time. So forgive me, presenters, we've only got 5 minutes for each session, so I know you're aware. And we're going to use perhaps a 1-minute warning. I need to find a sound effect. You might just get me saying 1 minute, or Tunde saying 1 minute to go. If any attendees would like to pose any questions at all, please feel free to use the chat on the right hand side. And we're also very keen to save a lot of questions for the panel discussion at the end, which we hope will be quite an exciting an active verbal discussion. So please feel free to save any in the chat room there. It would be handy for us if you could actually sort of preface, as you can see on the right hand side, if you preface any questions for the panel with a capital Q and a colon at the beginning of them. That'll help just us to filter them through for the panel at the end. But if you have any questions along the way, please feel free to post them in there. And I think the presenters will probably respond to them via chat as well, because we've got to keep this schedule going. We have got a Padlet board. Let me just show you what that looks like. And all of the presenters have kindly forwarded their presentations and have links to them here, and links to further information, should I say, or links to the actual podcast. So here's a great way. And I'm conscious that there might be externals or other people who've joined the Teams meeting today who don't have access to the chat board on the right hand side of the team. So if that is the case, you're welcome to make use of this Padlet board and post a question in here. We'll keep an eye on that as well. So here's a link to the Padlet. Let me see if I've got Notepad still open on my computer. I'll just drop this in the old chat here. And that's, again, not a lot of good for people who aren't on the call, but with the chat window, there's the Padlet board. And that's the QR code for the Padlet board if anyone needs to, and that's the link to it there as well. So you should all be able to access that. Okay, so we'll get started with the first presentation, which will be Lorna Mitchell from School of Law and Social Justice, who'll be demonstrating on how podcasting can bridge the gap between students and the legal profession, enhancing employability skills and fostering crucial connections. So now this is where the tech needs to be tested for the first time. Lorna, I'm going to try and share your presentation from my screen, or not on my screen, shall I say. So I'm going to stop sharing and share. And I think your presentation is called there we are. Okay, so hopefully that should work. Lorna, are you okay when it comes up? If we can promote you to be a presenter on the right hand side. Well, that's such a long list of people now, isn't it? I think I found you, or maybe not. If we could just promote you to become a presenter as well. Let's see, Lorna. There we are. So left click on there. I think you might be a presenter already, Lorna. Is that okay?
Yeah, do I need to take control? Do I need to click any?
Exactly. Take back control, and then if you'd like, if you want to leave presenter view, you can use the little buttons at the bottom as well. But I think that's all good to go, Lorna, if that's all right. Have we hit record, Tunde? I've forgotten. Yeah, I'll hit record now.
Has done that. Yeah.
Yeah, fab.
Okay, great. Hi everyone, I'm Lorna Mitchell, and I'm the creator and host of a podcast called Legal Directions. It's an employability podcast from the University of Liverpool Law School. The podcast really gets to the heart of all things related to employability and legal careers, where we have kind of illuminating discussions and kind of first-hand relevant advice from highly regarded legal professionals. And the idea is that it gives students a real insight into legal careers and jobs that they can, aspire to when they leave university. The podcast is obviously available to students and the public on Spotify. Why did I do the podcast? What was the rationale? I think the key rationale was to enhance student outcomes. I think that was really important. And really, my main aim was to design a kind of starting point for students who don't really have any connection with the legal community. And I wanted to create a kind of flexible resource that would enable them to build their kind of confidence and legal industry knowledge in a kind of low risk, safe space. So that was the main objective. But also, the podcast was conceived in response to informal feedback that I'd received from academic advisees who are finding it really difficult to engage with their, with all of the kind of on-campus employability events because of things like caring responsibilities, commuting to campus, or part-time work commitments. And I think the key thing about podcasts is they provide listeners with flexibility because students can, really decide when to listen, where to listen, and crucially at what pace to listen. And I think that's what makes a podcast a really useful learning tool. We had lots of great feedback, following the first kind of episode, the first series actually last year. And I've put some of that up just so you can get an idea.
Sorry, Lorna, to interrupt.
Yeah.
If you are advancing the slides, we cannot see the advancing, but if you haven't, that's fine. Sorry to interrupt.
I am advancing the slides, is it not moving?
We are still on the main page. I don't know.
No, I have moved them forward. I don't know why it's not showing that.
It is moving.
Is it? Oh, sync to
It is
presenter.
moving to
Sorry,
me.
my fault. There's something I haven't pressed.
Okay, I'll just move it
apologies,
back.
sorry.
No, that's
I don't know
okay.
about the others, but it's working for me.
Okay, great. I'll carry on then.
Thank you.
There was feedback that we received from students, lots of feedback. I just got some experts there. So Ben Taberner, who's a law student, he listened to a podcast with a law firm called DWF, and that encouraged him to apply for a VAC scheme. He then was successful at their assessment day process. And he felt it really helped him and gave him an insight on how to prepare for that experience, I suppose. And he's actually gone on to secure a really highly sought after training contract with that particular law firm. We've also had obviously lots of feedback from the law firms who've been involved as well. And In-House Legal Solutions, Lauren Cannon, their kind of owner and co-founder, really enjoyed the experience. Thought it was a great opportunity for her to get to speak to lots of students and inform them about her day-to-day role. I thought it was a really engaging way to deliver careers advice, so she found that really useful. So that's the kind of feedback that we've got, and it's been really positive. So I suppose I just want to give you an idea of how we've moved it forward this year. And to move things forward, what I've done is create a similar podcast for a different department. So this is SSPC students, and it's a podcast focused on careers in sociology, social policy, and criminology called Social Directions. We just recorded our first podcast this week actually on that, so with lots of social workers. So I think it's going to be a big hit with students. From my perspective,
Lorna, sorry,
as well.
can you say which slide you're on again? I think I might have mucked it up. We'll give you 2 minutes extra. Is that okay? Lorna?
Yeah, no, it's fine.
Whereabouts? What slide are we on?
I'm on
Lorna? 'Cause I bet I've
5.
mucked it up. 5. Yeah. Is that okay? Apologies. I took control when I'm. If you want to take back control, please do. God, you can tell I've done this before. Can't you, expert? Yeah, that's better. Thank you. Yeah.
No worries. No, that's absolutely fine. So the other thing that I've done this year is work with 2nd and 3rd year law students to organise and get them hosting guest episodes of Legal Directions, which has been really successful. We've done quite a few this year already. I think, this next phase of the project really with the students encourages active learning and gives them an opportunity to research and connect with a potential legal employer, and at the same time provides a context for them to develop really important employability skills such as organizational skills, communication, and networking. I think it's kind of a unique extracurricular that can really encourage students to not only just connect with legal employers, but develop their confidence and also their digital fluency skills. So I'm going to move on to the next slide. I hope this works. And the students who've actually been involved this year have also given some feedback as to how they found it and what they've got from presenting the podcast. If you see from Izzy and Burke, they both agree that it's helped them to, promote their confidence, improve it, and to develop things like leadership skills, organizational skills, and they were really pleased to be able to given that chance to lead their own project. I love the feedback from Jacob. He says it was both reassuring and refreshing to hear about earlier life and his journey to the bar, as he's not come from a background, where, of legal professionals, and neither had his kind of guest. And I think that really inspired him and gave him confidence that he also can become a barrister, despite not necessarily having the connections he thought he needed. And that really resonated with the listeners to the podcast and worked really, really well. I suppose the thing that I wanted to kind of leave you with as a key kind of takeaway is obviously I've used this in a very particular way, the podcast, but it has several other, ways in which you can use the podcast across various disciplines and within the student experience. I don't know whether they're actually coming up. It's not clicking on to the final bit, but I can run through them kind of orally anyway. The key thing is students can record podcasts, I think, if they're on field work, to perhaps record their findings, for example, rather than waiting days to write a report, for example. I think they can be used as really useful learning tools or perhaps a form of assessment. So groups working on perhaps a research project, instead of producing a presentation or a report, can join together and perhaps produce a podcast. I think it's also really great for producing student developed content, which I've done before. So you get students to prepare a podcast on a particular topic in a module, and then these podcasts are watched by their classmates and other students. This works really well just before assessment as a way of consolidating knowledge. And I suppose finally, the way I've used podcasts is, interviewing employers, but you could extend that to perhaps experts in their field or academic writers, for example. And I do think podcasts are a great way of sharing different perspectives. So whether you're using them as an interview, a form of debate, or roundtable discussion, a podcast is a really great way of bringing in different perspectives. So I think it can really work across different disciplines. And that's me.
Great. Oh, well done. Just the minute, I think. Fantastic. Great. Apologies again, Lorna, for the disruption. I'm not sure. It wasn't syncing for me, first of all. It might have been for other people. We trust Microsoft in these matters, don't we? But sometimes it doesn't always work. So forgive us, please. So next up, we have got, and I'm going to stop sharing the screen. I'll just share the next one, which will be Sarah Kate O'Hara and Warren Dolan. And let me just find the right one. Who's going to be presenting on the revamped Psych Liverpool podcast, showcasing the human side of psychology and the university's research. Now, yeah, well done. Thanks a lot, Lorna, for that one and keeping time on that one. Apologies again. So now, Sarah Kate, I'm hoping that you're presenter already. Can you try and take control from the top of the slide? And hopefully, when you move the little square bracket icons at the bottom and move forward about, hopefully that should sync for everybody. If it doesn't sync, then of course I think we can all move forward and backward by ourselves, but it's kind of easier if not. So I will start the timer again, and I'll try and give you a minute warning if that's all right. But yeah, okay, I'll hand over to you, Sarah Kate. Thank you.
Okay, fabulous. Thank you so much. Lovely to be here today. So I'm Sarah Kate O'Hara. I'm the Student Experience Digital Communications Administrator for the Department of Psychology. And I think, Warren, are you here to introduce yourself?
I am here, thanks, Sarah. I have no camera, so it's a bit like a podcast this afternoon. You can hear me, but you can't see me. I'm a senior lecturer in psychology, and we're going to present this together, aren't we?
We are indeed. So Warren's going to present the first half. I'm going to present the second half. So I'll move the slides for you, Warren. Is that syncing up for everyone?
It has, thank you.
Fabulous, great. So, Warren, talking about relaunching the Psych Liverpool podcast.
That's right, yeah. So this isn't a new podcast. This podcast was first aired pre-COVID, actually, and it was hosted by a former undergraduate psychology student, Elliot Webster. And the whole remit of the podcast was to try and capitalise on the expertise in our department, the research expertise, but also to capture people's imaginations. Psychology is one of these topics that's intuitively interesting, and it was a way of putting students and staff together to talk about their research in an engaging way, to dispel some myths and to demystify the research. So it was initially run by students, for students essentially, in conversation with various staff members in psychology. So we had Elliot, and then we had Ape and Miriam as well, who were all fantastic students who were involved. Then COVID happened, and then it went on pause for a bit. And then that's what me and Sarah are doing. We're now kind of bringing it back. Same kind of ethos, but we're going to be hosting it. We'll say more about that dynamic in a minute. But yeah, it's me bringing the sort of academic research perspective, and then Sarah as well with her skill set and her background in sort of the creative arts and that more kind of journalistic aspect. But yeah, the whole remit of it is to uncover the science behind the headlines and the people behind the science. That's kind of our tagline, really capturing that innate interest that people have in the topic. So can we move forward? I'm having to do it manually at my end. It's not moving for some reason.
It's okay. So going on to aims and aspirations of the podcast, and there's a lovely photo of Warren and I recording the first episode the other week.
There we are. Yes. So the aim of the podcast is, as I said, it's to really help the listeners in digesting and demystifying psychology research, but also the teaching and scholarship that we do in what we believe to be the best city on earth, of course, Liverpool. So we aim to show the people behind the research, the human stories, themed episodes around different events, Halloween, Christmas, whatever that might be. We had an episode before COVID where we talked about overeating and over drinking during the Christmas period, for example, and it's a very popular episode, quite funny actually. But yeah, really helping students and anyone actually to understand this topic within the context of Liverpool. As I said, we're very fortunate, although we are new, we're bringing it back. We've got this back catalogue of episodes that you can listen to via Spotify if you want to click that link as well. But yeah, me and Sarah recorded our first episode the other week, getting to know the hosts, and we've got quite a few others lined up, haven't we?
Yeah, definitely. It was a really fun episode to record, and we've got lots of exciting guests coming up from the department as well, including Dr. Alexis Makin and Professor Emma Boyland, which is fantastic. And I know we've only got 1.5 minutes left, so I'll carry on. So practicalities and recording of the podcast. So all of our episodes are recorded in our studios that we've opened in the Eleanor Rathbone building, the home of psychology, which myself and Kat Purdy will talk about in the next presentation. We're going to be releasing the episodes monthly, and Dr. Jasmine Warren is also the podcast researcher and produces the podcast and will be inviting guest speakers onto the podcast. All episodes and content are going to be planned in advance, especially if the content links to events in the city or globally, like Warren was saying there, link into that episode, overeating at Christmas. And then going forward, just kind of practicalities around things, because we have these inbuilt studios now in the Eleanor Rathbone building. We've got our facilities to record it ourselves, which is fantastic. Each episode's recorded on a Rode mixing desk and edited using Adobe Audition. So I host it as well as edit all from my previous background, because I'm NCTJ, National Council for the Trainer Journalist trained. So I've been trained in video and podcast recording and editing and things like that. So that's great to bring that into this role. We also record video footage as well during the podcast session, so we can create little promo clips to post online on our Instagram page. Some of those are going to be going up soon, so we can kind of tease what's coming up on each podcast episode, which is fab. And hopefully you'll get to see some of those soon. And then just to round off, some top tips from me. It's helped really having some focus in the podcast. So we always kind of have questions we start off with, kind of little icebreakers, but then we allow the conversation to flow naturally, just to make it engaging for the audience, rather than sounding just like a job interview essentially. Preparation's key. That just helps us to know who to invite onto the podcast, and obviously get the engagement out there with audiences to link it to different events. And also a massive tip as well, just make test recordings to ensure the sound levels are correct, because there's nothing worse than listening to a podcast podcast and hearing the volume going up and down all the time. So we always do like 2 or 3 little test recordings just to make sure the sound levels are okay before we record. Nothing worse than recording a great episode than finding you haven't got anything to show for it. And also, you know what, the big one, have fun. You know, you want the audience to enjoy the podcast, so you know you should enjoy recording it at the same time. So big one, just have fun. And then at the end of the slide, you've just got some contact details as well if anyone wants to ask any more questions about the podcast. And that's it, because I realise
Well
we've run out
done,
of time.
guys. Yeah, we're getting it to a T. All right, fabulous. Thanks a lot for that, Sarah Kate and Warren as well. Great. Okay, so next up, please, again, put any questions in the chat, or if you've got a chat for the panel at the end, we'd like some nice questions that would be fantastic for the whole panel, then please do put them in the chat as well. Next up, we've got Kat Purdy and also Sarah Kate as well, but I think Kat might be talking this time. Is that right? Yeah?
We're both talking.
Both of
Kat,
us.
would you like to take over the screen, or have you got anything to present, or shall I stop sharing?
That's cool. I'm taking over.
Fab. Yeah, great. All looking good. Great.
Brilliant. Thank you.
So I'll hand over. Yeah.
Our session is on actually setting up the recording studios for IPH and some lessons that we learned along the way. So I'm Kat Purdy. I'm the TEL technician for Department of Psychology, and we have Sarah again as well.
You already know me. It's fine.
So we're quickly going to run through the scoping exercise that we had for setting up these studios, how we procured the equipment, how we put it all together, some training and procedures that we've set up in place of this for managing the studios, and some lessons learned as well. So speeding through this, we began conversations around setting up the recording studios back in February 2024. Originally, there were interview rooms for the law clinic, so we had to work with the existing infrastructure in there. And we lent on the expertise of Mark from SEDS, the team for initial guidance on setting up the studios, such as what equipment would be most appropriate to procure. And from this, I created a very crude floor plan of how the studios would look. And this went on to something a bit better. So I worked with Richard from the School of Allied Professional Health and Nursing to purchase our initial AV equipment, such as microphones, audio mixers, cables, and soundproofing foam for walls. We originally wanted to purchase some new TVs and monitors and cameras, but we were kind of constrained by budget. So we decided to use the existing equipment and furniture that was in the rooms, which is TVs mounted to the walls and conferencing systems attached. And Sarah has some specific equipment that was set up that she'll talk about.
Yeah, so like we said with for example, cameras. So obviously, having come from a journalism background, there was certain equipment I was used to using, like the DSLR cameras and things like that. So there was like little recommendations that I said for equipment. But also as well, it was interesting because obviously these TVs that we've got mounted on the walls were originally there. But what's great is they can actually be manually adapted as well. Because one of the big things is people saying, yeah, it's quite distracting if you've got all this podcasting equipment around you and trying to present on a conference call, so you can zoom the cameras in and out. So if you've got equipment there, it is really good to see if you can repurpose it first before doing a complete repurposing of a room.
Thank you. So as you can see, the room started off looking very amateur, I would say, while we were setting them up. I didn't realise how long it would take to attach soundproofing foam to walls, and who knew that double-sided sticky tape would be my best friend throughout all of this. And then we've got a little video here looking around the room. In the very early stages, I'd like to say there's no more backsides of tape in there. So they've come together really nicely though. So we do have 2 podcasting studios, which are set up identically with 2 microphones, headsets, and a Rode mixer in each. And there are also LED lights in each room in case the overhead light's a bit too glaring.
Yeah, and then we have our video studio as well, which is fabulous. So we've got our green screen in there. So say, for example, you wanted to create a video with some like lecture slides behind you, for example, you're able to talk and then have the lecture slides behind you, which is absolutely fantastic. And also have, you know, different locations and, you know, just adding a little bit of context to your video. Essentially, and also we've got the professional light in there so that we can obviously make sure everything looks in high definition and professional. And what you can't see in these photos as well is that we can use these rooms for headshots as well. So we've got our photography backgrounds and we can take headshots in there as well, which is really, really good.
Thank you.
But just going on to, obviously, after all the equipment's in, you need training and processes in place for anyone who uses the rooms. So I put together a training guide depending on requirements. So we like to make sure that staff are quite self-sufficient when they use the rooms. So depending on your requirements, whether you want to learn about podcasting or video recording, because there's a lot of people who are very new to like podcasting, and it's great to give everyone these skills. So I make sure that this training guide's in place so we can train staff up to use the studios. But assistance is always available during all recording sessions, either from Kat or myself, so that if there are any issues that come up, we can be on hand. I also have had a few staff members who've said it's great that you can edit things, but I'd like to know how to make things as well. So I created guides for using software such as Coral Video Studio and Audacity as well, just so staff can learn how to edit the content themselves should they wish to do so.
So skip to the last slide, Sarah, because we've got 20 seconds.
I am speeding up, so do not worry. Do not worry. It's also I've created sign-in and out sheets for all different equipment as well. So obviously there's a lot of expensive equipment in there, just in case anyone needs any additional microphones, because the studios at the moment can have 2 microphones set up, but if we have a third person in, we can obviously add a third microphone in. And also there's a booking form for the studio, so we can just manage who's in there and when, and also requirements on staff time as well.
Some things we just quickly knew, wish we'd known at the beginning of this journey. Motion sensor lights don't work for studios. Waving your arms around to activate them can be really distracting. So installing like switches was very key for us.
And also soundproofing as well. When I was going in testing the studios, there's actually bathrooms and a kitchen next door, and we realised that was coming through quite clearly. So I made sure that there were soft close hinges on the bathroom doors, which have made a massive amount of difference. And you wouldn't think of little things like this, but you've really got to think of your environment, not just in the studios, but outside of them as well. Also going back to equipment, so I initially suggested a Canon DSLR, and we did have a Sony camera in there, but we found that, you know, there was an internal camera fault with it. This can happen with any makeup camera, by the way. So we got it replaced, but obviously, you know, things do kind of come up in terms of equipment. So, you know, if something doesn't work the first time, obviously try something else. It's whatever works best for you. And then Kat, going on, because obviously we've got no time left.
I just put on screwdrivers are required. Micro SD cards fall everywhere. I had to disassemble an entire Rode mixer because it fell in between the cracks. So know how you take apart your equipment.
That's when you put the card in, it fell sort of in between the casing, right, Kat?
Yes.
Yeah.
I had to unscrew 32 screws with a torque 8 screwdriver. I now know that, and I wish I didn't.
You've got a good screwdriver set now. That's the plus side of it.
Yes.
Yeah. Great. Thanks a lot for that, guys. Yeah, great. So next up, we've got Nicola Tempest, Alison McLean, Eleanor Brighton, and Lorna Salvini on the Between Two Ovaries podcast, which is going to bring us a fun and empowering discussion on women's health and wellness through their podcast. So, fab. Are you guys okay? Yeah, you're presenting as well. That's fab. So I'll hand over to you. All looking good.
Can you see that okay? Yeah.
Yeah, we can see your main slide at the moment. Yeah, that's fine.
Perfect. So hi.
Oh, hang on, it's just gone off screen again, I'm afraid.
Oh God.
I think it's because you might have 2 monitors on.
I have, yeah.
We can
Is that
see
better?
that at the moment, so you could use the left and right keys. That kind of work for us.
I think this one.
Or if you
You
go back to the
change
main.
the
Wait, I'll
display
change the
settings.
sharing screen.
If
Yeah,
you change the
that's typical
display
thing, isn't it?
settings at the top, it should be flicking
Share
between.
to this one. Better?
Yes, that's looking good.
Good. So hi, thank you for letting us speak about our podcast today. So our podcast is slightly different to the other ones. It's called Between Two Ovaries. I'm Nicola Tempest. I'm one of the doctors at the Women's Hospital. I do gynecology and reproductive medicine. Alison is one of the other medics at the Women's Hospital, and Eleanor is one of our PhD students with a psychology background, and Lorna is another one of our PhD students with a science background. So we came together to do Between Two Ovaries, which is a podcast about all things women's health. And it was on the background of people just not being able to advocate for themselves, basically. So coming to clinic and not being sure why they were having a procedure, not being sure what the best thing was for them. And I just found it kind of, well, it was resilience building for me, explaining the same things again and again, but also like, it's just rubbish that people don't know what certain things are, and they get all their information from the friends, aunties, sisters, brothers who thinks coils fall out of their noses, or they think that there's issues with every single thing that there is that we offer from a gynecology point of view. And we kind of just wanted to tell people that this isn't the case, and we do want the best for people. So it's aimed at anybody who wants to learn a bit more about women's health. We've released 11 episodes so far, everything from myths about the Mirena to endometriosis essentials, and we've got plenty more to come.
So yeah, obviously there's a lot of women's health misinformation going on, and we really want to bust myths and share facts to empower these women. So we have a PPI group, a patient public involvement group, and they really emphasise the need to combat this misinformation, and they've been really helpful throughout as well. So we chatted to them about what we should call our podcast, what topics they want to hear about, and they've helped us, giving us feedback on the ones that we've released as well. And we do measure our success with this feedback. So we look at how many listens we get, how many followers we have, the engagement with the podcast, and also with the social media. So we do get quite a lot of views at the minute. So we're getting over 4,000 listens, and we've got over 40,000 likes and watches on our social media posts. And so we kind of trying to get this information out there.
Yeah, so we've had a lot of help, and I know that kind of we've just heard from someone that says people might want to edit themselves and do all this themselves, but we have been really lucky and fortunate to receive lots of help. And for somebody who doesn't have a background like other people, I don't spend my time and haven't spent my time doing any kind of editing, and I'm not on social media. So it was a steep learning curve, because we were like, there's loads of misinformation about women's health, therefore we will provide lots of good information and people will listen, but actually that's just not what happens. And if you're going to put something out there, we didn't realize that there was a lot of the social media side to it. So it has been definitely a learning curve for us. Mike has been amazing with regards to like setting up how we should do the podcast and telling us that we need to change our outfits so that we look interesting on the podcasts, and making sure that the sound and the audio and the video quality is great. And then we've done them now with interviews with people, so that's been like a whole other level of how we're going to work that out. And then my sister has been fantastic with regards to the social media. She's a bit of like a task manager with how we need to get stuff sorted, despite having a full-time job, bless her. So we've had a lot of help.
So some top tips we have for people who are thinking about starting a podcast would be to choose your topic carefully, because it needs to be something that you're really passionate about, but also that people are going to be interested in. And also you need to really plan. So although when we're in the studio, our podcasts do just feel like we're having a little conversation, you do need to meticulously plan these so you can make sure you include all the information that you want. Communicating and engaging with your audience is really important. So you've got to make sure that the content of your podcast do meet the needs of the listeners, because it is for them. And being persistent but patient in building a platform is definitely important, because it does take time, and you really do have to focus on consistency with posts on social media and podcast releases. So we release every other Sunday. And again, help is needed. So podcast is a team effort, and we really appreciate all the help we've got for it.
Yeah, we like bounce off each other. I think it's kind of although we have everything planned very meticulously, so we make sure that all the information is included, we do go off on tangents all the time, and there's a lot of giggling involved and a lot of innuendos and various different things, because, you know, people have got to find it interesting.
Got to make education entertaining.
Yeah. Thank you.
Right. Oh, well done. There wasn't too many tangents there. That was really good. Really good. Thanks very much for that. Very, very interesting indeed. So reminder for everybody, if you've got any questions for the panel, which is all the presenters joining in, any of those questions you'd like to ask them, that you would like to see how each one responds to, then please pop it in the chat, and just make sure you put a Q at the beginning. So our next presenter is my own colleague Tunde from CIE. So Tunde, I believe you'll be talking about the Innovative Treasure Islands Pedagogies podcast. So we'll be excited to hear how that's been going. So I'll hand over to you. Oh, Tunde, shall I bring up your presentation as well?
Yes, please, if you can.
Okay.
Thank you.
Cool. I shall just bring that up now. Share. And I think you've called your one.
I think it's tip for Treasure Island
Tip
Pedagogies.
one. Got it. Yeah. All right. Fab. Well, it should just be coming up now. Is that okay for you? Fab.
Yeah. So.
Right.
So thanks everyone. Welcome. I'm Tundi Varg-Atkins. I'm based in the Centre for Innovation in Education at Liverpool Uni. And as Nicole and colleagues just said, it's very much a team effort creating a podcast. So I just wanted to credit our lovely colleagues, Chris and Neil, especially, who helped with the production of the podcast, as well as other team members who play a part in the web design, the design and social media support, without which it wouldn't be such a great output. And of course, I'm biased. But so yeah, what is the podcast? It really grew out from our conversations through COVID, when we were discussing about what it is that we need to do with students on our during our special contact time together to make their learning experience better. So that's what we called our Treasure Island, and how we would inhabit that Treasure Island. What would we do? So the podcast is really a conversation around that, an informal conversation with 3 or 4 guests who bring a light bulb moment, which is when their students are getting it. So describing either a teaching innovation on some sort of pivotal moment in their life as educators. And we were lucky to have Lorna from here today on the podcast as well, but many of others too. And we also asked them to bring a teaching prop or pedagogy to the island and a luxury item. So if people are familiar with Desert Islandist, then obviously that's been a huge inspiration in the format of the podcast. And the audience is educators, educational developers, learning technologists, or anyone really passionate about education. And we also produce, in addition to the audio podcast, a blog post and the web page, just that we have other outputs as well. And as you see, having fun is definitely a feature in the podcast, if you see a little screenshot of people. What's the aspiration behind, or the rationales behind creating this podcast, is partly around teaching, helping to champion people, educators, teaching innovations to wider audience that would be available to them. So it's something that helps recognize the impact of their scholarship and innovation on a wider platform. And it's also something, when we come together, it's quite creative and fun. The discussion, it can go in various directions. And I think also in terms of the audience of the podcast being busy academics, educators, it's quite accessible. I think people like this informal podcast format. And the other aspiration behind this was to create interdisciplinary discussions and intercultural conversations, just because we know that innovation usually spreads in interdisciplinary contexts. And the other feature that we wanted to have with this podcast is to give people across the world a platform to partly also to disseminate, but also involve different cultural and educational backgrounds in the creation of the podcast. So to date, we have got about 6 countries represented. You can see it from the map in 38 episodes from 129 guests. So if any of you interested coming on board as a guest or as a traveler to Treasure Island, you're very welcome, especially if you also wanted to signpost to people who are not yet represented on our podcast in the map. So that would be brilliant. And just some examples of impact in terms of we obviously look at some of the statistics and listen rates, but also gathered some more qualitative feedback from people. So we know that in some cases it inspired people to start their own podcast, or others where the conversation go on. Obviously, that's amazing. We have people who co-presented with other guests after taking part at a conference. Or another example featured in this podcast, for instance, when someone was talking about the Maori version of Advanced Ages Professional Standards framework that inspired then another guest to develop its Confucian version. So I think things like this, there's usually some connection points between people, especially where we ask people to barter items with each other on the island, and that can be quite fun. And more importantly, we, as a result of the series, we also started an Islands of Innovation festival, which has grown into an annual online event that is around active learning, playful learning, sort of carrying on the spirit of the podcast. And I will shamelessly plug this at the end as well. So just in terms of the editing process, we record this on Teams because it enables us to have guests across different institutions and countries. As you've seen, the editing is done via Adobe Premiere Pro, but I think colleagues mentioned Audacity, so there's also other tools, free tools available as well. And a typical editing might look like this. So with the raw recording, we do a little bit of a warm-up of the guest and explanation of what's going to happen. The framework is given, so people know the sort of the framework, the format of the 3 items that they need to bring to the island. And we have a little intro and outro at the beginning and at the end that is kind of similar. It's a nice familiar format. And then the editing process just helps with cleaning it up with a little jingle at the beginning, at the end. We host on Spotify, and I realize I'm out of time. And just, I think someone said this tip already. I think it's the best conversation if it flows naturally and goes into uncharted, fun territories that wouldn't have been possible without just perhaps one guest. And if interested, follow that link. I will post it in the chat. And just plugging our Islands of Innovation event as well as Theme Park of Innovation. But thank you very much, everybody.
Oh, well done, Tunde. Yeah, thanks very much. So, again, any questions for Tunde or the rest of the panel, just drop it in the chat on the right-hand side. Or there's that Padlet board that I've now lost the link to. But you can also put questions in that, and we'll probably come to that and look for that ahead of the panel as well. So next up, we're joined by Michael Bayliss, who's going to be talking about the Media Suite's pivotal role as a versatile production space across the University of Liverpool. So handing over to you, Michael.
Sorry, I'm muted. Sorry, there's 2 ways I can present. So the first way I'm going to present is this way. So if anyone can see that screen, if not, I'll present a different way. We can be fancy or we can be unfancy. So I think we're going to be
Is it for your webcam,
and try and share my screen. Cool. So can everyone see my shared screen? I'm hoping so. Yes, I'm going. Yes. Cool. So yeah, the Media Suite, we're going to whiz through. The Media Suite is located in the basement of 1 to 7 Abercrombie Square. It is called the Media Broadcasting Studio, or the Media Studio. It has been created by the university around 6.5 years ago, just the same as what I've been in my own job role. So I was basically brought in to support the School of Histories, Languages and Cultures, but my main degree is music technology and video production. So we've got this fantastic studio that has been running for such a long time now, 6.5 years, and it covers, my topic is sort of not answering the questions that everyone's put forward, but it covers sort of teaching aspects, podcasting, recording, live radio, live TV, green screening, promotional content. The studio does anything you sort of want it to do, but has its limitations. So obviously first and foremost, it's a teaching resource for around, at the moment, 8 modules. It's predicted to go up to 14 in September, which is going to make me very busy. And we basically cover all podcasting elements in these modules. The first module is Poly 339. I'm not going to go through all the modules. Poly 339 is live radio broadcasting, and they have to do with 2 hours of live radio to the world through the studio, operate among themselves. They have a live phone in. They can connect to Zoom. They can get live guests in. Sorry, my phone is pinging like crazy. I do apologise. I am a technician on call constantly. So yeah, we do all those, and then we've just been signed up to Politics MA. In semester 1 of this year, we've had over 250 students in the studio, and predicted so far this semester is 60 students. So the studio is getting heavily used just by student intake, and that's usually with a technician, i.e. the person talking to you, representing said students in the space, helping them either record or whatever. So around these are the sort of figures. As you can see, the studio usage for podcasting and teaching has increased drastically over the years, and it's just becoming a fun sort of innovative teaching resource that has won sort of learning teaching fellowship awards, learning enhancement, student enhancement awards, and all sorts in the past, just through the studio's format. And obviously that format in that picture is me teaching academics how to teach podcasting in their class. So we had a full room of 15 academics per group, and I was delivering that chat to them. And these are just a few podcasts that we have covered or have been part of in the studio over the few years we've been doing podcasting. So I'm just going to flick through them because there's so many that the studio represents and does and has already started. As you can see here, the Original Ideas podcast for the university's podcast that is recorded by Central Comms is recorded in this studio, doing photos. And as Nicola Tempest mentioned before, the Between Two Ovaries is recorded in the studio. Even the new University of Liverpool Tech Talk podcast that we've just started hosting is recorded in the studio. These are just a slight catchment of all the podcasts. This is just a small sort of blanket area of all the podcasts. I couldn't include all the pictures because there's too many pictures, and these all go up on Spotify. These all go up on Apple Music. Some of them are run by students, some of them are run by PhD students, some of them are run by undergraduates, master students, and some are just talking about experiences. The Blazing the Trail one is quite an interesting one because it's a University of Sydney joint collaboration podcast where we recorded all the audio in our studio here and sent all the data over for them for their animated films, which was quite an interesting one. The studio, again, is not just used for teaching or podcasting. It is also used for research, which is amazing. This is the latest piece of research that has come out of the studio. The 476,000-year-old wooden structure that was found last year in Zambia by Dr. Professor Larry Barham, all his promotional video content and all his interviews for the BBC, New York Times, ITV, Granada were all done via the studio. As you can see me there listening to the same interview. It's just sitting and listening to him talk about the same thing over and over again because everyone wants to ask the same questions. So it was pretty intense. The video got over 3.5 million views on YouTube for a promotional video, which was all filmed in here. We have a green screen behind these curtains. We have University of Liverpool promotional sort of logos behind these curtains as well. We can also do the weather in here because we have a little fancy thing. We can pop the weather up and we can do the weather, and you can got a clicker and all sorts. It's got an auto cue camera, so they can also read a script. So we're always looking at the camera, which is there. And I hate 4K. I am filming myself in 4K. It's not very nice. Moving on to my last 10 seconds, we also do publications in the studio. So this is a latest Bristol University Press publication. They did an 1.5 hour talk about the book, launch in a podcast format. 4 Around the Desk is optimal. We've shown that in a lot of podcasts, and we've also recently just done a interview with Australia for the Women's Health podcast, which took a lot of technical aspirations to get together, but it worked really, really well. And we zoomed into Australia at 7 a.m. in the morning, which wasn't the prettiest to see everyone come in right, fresh and early in the morning, but we got the job done, and it was a fantastic podcast. So thank you for watching.
Oh, very interesting. Thanks a lot, Michael. It was really interesting to see the variety and range of different uses of the space and your support for it. Really, really good. So finally, we're going to be joined by Danny Blair, Rebecca Jobson, Pete Bridge, and Danny will be talking about the award-winning Live PL podcast, which explores interprofessional learning and health initiatives with a local perspective. So yeah, handing over to you.
Okay, can everybody see?
Yeah, certainly can.
Excellent. So I need to correct it first. So it's the Live IPL podcast, and it's a bit of a play on words because it's Liverpool. Okay. So basically, the team, myself, Rebecca, we're the hosts. We speak to people, and we sort of drive the student-led elements of it. Pete sort of came up with the idea, but the real heroes, Richard Mays, who started off giving us the technical support, and Paul Abbott, are the people that are sorting all the technical aspects and doing the editing. And I think from this showcase straight away, you found that they're the people that you can't really do without. Obviously, it's the team effort, so all together. Is that advanced on?
It has, yes.
This is second slide, okay? So,
yeah,
on the science stick to time, it's all about interprofessional working in healthcare. We are the School of Allied Health Professions and Nursing, and what we found out, we have to do IPLs teaching with the students. The analogy we use is if people have got, say if you're building a house, the electrician needs to know what the plasterer's doing, needs to know what the plumber's doing, needs to know what the tiler's doing. In health, does it work like that? Possibly not. We do try to make it work like that, but it would be better if it works like that. And when we started off, we really thought about our own professions. So we've got orthoptics, occupational therapy, physio, nursing, diagnostic radiography, therapeutic radiography, which is what we are, and then also linking into like dentistry and medicine. But through the podcast, we've actually found out that, like we've ended up speaking about, I'll speak about Matt Ashton in a second. He's the director of public health for Liverpool. He was speaking about ice cream men. So we've gone far and wide. We've had people speaking about security guards in airports. It's ended up being quite a big change, and basically finding out that everybody's important. It's for people's health, not just the health professions themselves. So we're trying to teach our students about interprofessional learning, and that's how it all started. But what we've ended up doing is uncovering something bigger, delving into interprofessional learning, and actually something that started to complement the students' learning has ended up going a little bit further. Okay, so IPL, interprofessional learning, our students have to learn about this. It's really important. They now get a qualification, the Future Healthcare Practitioner Plus Award, when they finish, and this is part of it. So we found it hard to teach our students with this, and what we actually found out was doing less days and doing longer days, but then supplementing it with things like this that we get them involved in as well. So we're trying to, if I asked you guys, what does an occupational therapist do? People might not know. If I ask people what orthotics did, people might think it's an optician. If I ask you what I did, the therapeutic radiographer, my mum still doesn't know what that is. So let's tell the word, let's bust the myths. Let's get people to tell people what they do, and also get them speaking to each other. We also got the students involved and engaged them. We'll come on to the students involved in a second. But also, it's been a thread through this podcast showcase. You've got to have fun. If you're not having fun, the listeners are not having fun. And I want to hear people having fun so I can have fun as well. Okay. Students' involvement's been massive for us. We present at the welcome week for any courses that start in our year. We talk about our podcast, we talk about what we do, and at the end of it, we get people to sign up. We're praying that we don't get 100 sign-ups because that would be really difficult. And often it's quite optimal. We tend to get 5 or 6 people each year that want to be part of the podcast team. We've had people from international students, all different walks of life, different professions, and it's really worked well. What we've tended to do, you might recognise this person in the middle here, Mr. Warrington, Dr. Warrington Ellen. He's been on our podcast talking about resilience. He's actually coming back on to our podcast as well in a couple of weeks, so I look forward to seeing you there, Warren. But you can see this one on the right-hand side is students interviewing other students. And what we're finding more now is students are actually sourcing their guests and then they're interviewing them, and we're either facilitating it or letting them do it on their own. We've also had some ones where it's been a little bit different. We've had some really high-profile guests in addition to Warren and Ellen. I know you're not on this slide, Warren, but I didn't want to give you too much exposure. Hope you don't mind. But we had Professor David Bach. If you don't know him, he's quite unassuming and he doesn't say a lot about himself, but he did a lot about the HIV work, which Liverpool's a world first for. Professor Sally Sheard, you might know her. She's one of our institute deans. She's one of the deans of institutes in the university, and her podcast was probably our most well-received one. And it's not out yet, but I interviewed Professor Matt Ashton, who's the director of public health to Liverpool. It's going to be a really interesting episode as well. Half-hour episodes there or thereabouts. A couple of these might have to be 2-parters, which is a little tip for you. Don't cut it short. Just do as much as you do, edit it afterwards, and if it needs to be a 2-parter, put it out as a 2-parter. We said sharing recipes here. I know I'm coming close on time. We speak a lot about food to anchor the podcast. So there's a question at the start. What have you been eating? What have you been going for? We've had people making noodles out of swede. We've had people using the residual heat of toast to melt cheese and then putting jam on top. It's probably the thing people talk about the most, which I don't know whether it's a good or a bad thing, but it is quite fun. But it's helping to get out there and talk about IPL in many different contexts, okay? It's gone far and wide, but just to finish, we've won a couple of awards. We've won an IPH award for student experience, and hopefully we're going to win a Central University award, the Phil Leonard League. We just yesterday found out that we've been shortlisted for that. we've had really good feedback from people who aren't anything to do with health. So if you can make it interesting and it's filling the purpose of university, that's one thing. But if you can make it the conversation flow naturally, as people have said, I think it ends up being a good listen anyway. If you want to link to our podcast, there's a link in the Padlet, or you can scan this now. How am I doing for time? I look like I've gone over. Have I gone over? I can't see
Just at the end now there, Daniel.
Just at the end, yeah. So little tips. Our support that we've had from the SEDS team, I know Paul's on this call and Richard as well, has been unbelievable. If you haven't got the background like Sarah Kate has, which sounds amazing, Sarah Kate's not very lucky to have that background, then make sure you get support. But the other tip is, if you're thinking about doing it, just dive in with both feet and just do it. Make your mistakes as you go, and it's the best way to learn. Get the mics rolling, talk, and get it going. It's been a great thing to be involved in, and I hope that it can grow and go further.
Right.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Daniel. That's great. So that's the end of the presentations part of it, and we'll just open the mics to the presenters at this point. And has anybody got a question for them off the bat? I guess the first question I've got to quickly ask, put through, how much time does it take you to produce each podcast episode?
How long's a piece of string?
How long's a piece of string? Great. Next one. Yeah, go. Michael, how long do you reckon it might take? It depends upon the content, I suppose. Are you scheduling a week?
Sorry, yeah, I put my hand up. It depends how much you want to edit it. So I've seen it some days editing graphic and very much get it out there, coughs and all. And it all, you know, Paul makes it seem very easy because we record it and then he edits it and it's done pretty quick, and Paul's quite a proactive guy. Everyone works in different ways. So if you've got someone ready waiting to edit it and they edit it, then that can be quick. I know Professor Tom Solomon, who was one of our other guests, he records it on Zoom and just instantly puts it straight out. So
yeah,
it depends
freshness. Anybody else on that one? Sarah Kate?
Yeah, because it isn't just like the editing of the podcast either. It's the preparation in researching what your episode's going to be about, and then obviously inviting guests onto the podcast as well. So there's a lot of preparation that goes even before you've recorded it as well. So it's kind of, you've got to factor in not just the recording itself, but also the pre and post production.
How far in advance do you all plan ahead your schedule of what's coming up? Nicola? Any sorts of stuff?
Because we're medics, so it's like we need to find a time that we're free and that Mike's free and that we're all about. But with the actual like what we're going to do, we've got lots and lots planned, but we do kind of a note session of going through to make sure that the plan of you're going to do that, you're going to do that, you're going to do that. It's definitely off on a million tangents, but we do know where we kind of what we need to cover by the end of it to make sure the information's there.
And we usually plan these and go and film 3 of them at once in one day.
That's a great tip there for a new person starting out. Lorna, have you got any tips for a new starter coming into podcasting? Just one tip, maybe?
Sorry. I think, researching your guests so that, you can kind of think of some interesting questions, give them an idea of what you're doing, but you want it to be natural. So kind of have backup questions as well. And we always try and do some fun questions, what law would they change, if they could, to, lighten it as well.
Fab, great. And I'm just scrolling through for any other questions in the chat here. One other one did come up about measuring impact. I don't know if any of the panel would like to come back to that one about ways that you've measured impact that you might be useful. Fastest responder?
We've got listens, so like we have an Excel sheet with the listens and the videos, watches of each.
You can track that over time then with different content. Tunde, any thoughts on that one?
As I said on the thing, sometimes, obviously the listens. For me, it was interesting to have a representation across different cultures and educational cultures, and then collecting some more free text comments. Or I think that's definitely, but the impact is probably dependent on what the actual purpose of the podcast is.
Right, and the last minute, Daniel.
So we did a quiz. We got an air fryer off Amazon, which is something everyone loves. And we did a quiz in Canvas, so it was only for our students, obviously other people. And then whoever got whoever got all the questions right and did the best tiebreaker they won an air fryer, and we put that out on
Yeah.
our social media. So
Fab. Do your students, does that contribute to any assessments in the courses as well, or just extracurricular, I suppose, but very useful for them instead? Michael. Sorry, just need to unmute yourself, Michael.
I think I'm muted. So analytics from Spotify, which is amazing. You can get all those impacts for teaching. Really, is the student surveys and the MEQs that are absolutely vital to us sort of pushing forward for making the podcast what it is, like in classrooms or doing live radio.
Yeah.
For the live radio module last semester, they gave us 100% across the board for
Fab.
all student intake. The impact was massive because it's just a fun. We're very laid back. We just let them get on with it. They have half an hour to prep. If they don't prep and they go straight into a live show, then you're live. I'm sorry, but you're live.
They get a different
when you're on live
experience,
radio.
don't they? They're coping contingently, yeah. Fab, really good points. I would like to say that there's some really fantastic suggestions in the chat as well. It would be great if you just cast your eyes over it. It would be nice to put someone in the Padlet board, but there's really Paul and also other colleagues as well has been really putting some fantastic suggestions on tools such as I spotted one place that you can share your link to the podcast and it will automatically disseminate to Spotify and these other areas, distribute to them as well. Some really nice tips in the chat there, and that's been really useful. It's now 2:01. So Tunde, is that okay for today? Shall we wrap up there? So once again, thank you very much to all the presenters for giving us your time, and we realise it was very, very compact, but we also thank everybody for coming this afternoon as well, and hope you enjoyed it too. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Will.
Everyone,
Thanks very
bye-bye.
much.
Thank you, Will.
Yeah.
Bye.
Stop. Yeah. Thanks very much, Daniel, for coming and presenting. It'd be really good to see the pictures as well. It was a fantastic presentation, I think. Yeah.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Great.
It's great. Yeah.
Yeah.